Hi there, I want to welcome you back to Old Testament Survey. It's been a few weeks since we've had a video update. I do apologize for that. I've been traveling a lot on the weekends, and usually I make these on Saturday or Sunday afternoons. But we're in the home stretch, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the course and how you can finish the course well. Let me begin by talking a little bit about the content here in week 7. Now, in week 7, the primary theme is the theme of exile, which has been hinted at prior to this week in some of your other reading and some of your other viewing. Let me just encourage you, you have probably been doing a great job viewing all of the videos, but be sure and watch both videos that discuss the concept of exile. Both of them are located in Moodle under the Weekly Resources tab where you know to find them. Both of them give you an idea of how exile functions in the minds of the Jewish people. One of the reasons that exile is such an important subject is because when we can understand the impact that the exile had on the people living in Jerusalem and its surrounding area, when we can understand the impact that it had on them, we can also understand the continued impact that it had on the people who both read and wrote the New Testament. As a matter of fact, when Christ comes on the scene in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, he is arriving in a place and in a time that is greatly influenced by the values and concerns and fears that emerged during the exile. And in addition to that, groups of people such as the Pharisees and the Sadducees, even the idea of a synagogue, all of these things emerged as a result of the exile in Babylon. So pay close attention to that this week. And one more thing to keep in mind, the discussion question is on King Manasseh. And it's interesting, the book of Kings, 2 Kings rather, and 2 Chronicles, each contain an account of King Manasseh's reign. And each of them are closely or almost identical up to a point. But then 2 Chronicles includes a lot of new information, not new information, but different information than 2 Kings. And this week you're being asked to think about the differences in that material and what it might mean. That is, why do we have two different accounts of Manasseh? And there is a PowerPoint that might be helpful to you on that, along with some other materials in there that I hope will be useful to you during this week of study. Also, pay close attention to the Chronicles account, or the Chronicles video that says not just a repeat. That'll be really helpful to you in your thinking about King Manasseh. Now, finally, I want to just touch base with you about two writing assignments that you have in finishing up this course. These are not large assignments. The first one is called the writing project. The second one is the final exam. Let me talk about the writing project very briefly. The writing project sounds more in depth than it really is. The writing project basically includes clicking on the link that says writing project, and that'll take you into basically an exam kind of setting there in Moodle. You will have 3 questions posed to you. You only have to answer one of these questions. All right, answer only one question. And I think each one is looking for 2 to 3 paragraphs on that subject. So choose one of the questions and respond to it with 2 to 3 paragraphs, and that will complete your writing project. Now, I do want you to include your sources. If you use sources beyond the textbook, please cite them at the bottom of your little brief essay that you do in the writing project. All right? But remember, choose only one of the 3 questions. And your grade will turn out to be a third of what it'll be on the final. If you have any questions about that, feel free to email me and I'll straighten out any confusion that there might be. Lastly, there is the final exam. And that is the final exam is going to open up that final week of class. Now, the final exam consists of you reading the book of Tobit, which is an apocryphal book. It was written after the collection of the Old Testament, and it was not included in the canon of the Old Testament. But it's a fascinating and interesting book, and actually a very fun read. So I encourage you to read the book of Tobit. And when you read it, I want you to pay attention to events that Tobit refers to that have already occurred in your reading of the Old Testament. Okay? You're going to identify one of those events and comment on it in this exam. You're also going to do the same thing by thinking about customs or attitudes or values that people of the Old Testament, the Jewish people, the Israelite people of the Old Testament would hold. And you're going to cite that as well and write about it. There are more explicit and in-depth instructions for the final exam. But again, it's not a huge assignment, but it is one that requires you to read Tobit closely, perhaps take notes, and think about events that occurred in the Old Testament that are referred to in Tobit, along with ideas, attitudes, and values that the people of Israel might have held that Tobit is referring to in his book. I think you'll find reading Tobit to be a pleasant read and a fun time. One last thing on these two assignments. The writing project assignment is open now. You can begin it even today. The final exam will open 1 week from today. Both the writing project and the final exam are due by the 29th of July, which is the last day of class. Be sure and complete them by that time. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Reach out to me, let me know how you're doing, and may God bless you as you finish up the class here in the home stretch. Take care.